Here we go. All right. Welcome back, everyone. We have one and only. One and only. Here we go. All right. Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah,
John.
we are we are live.
John is here.
I ain't nobody.
Yeah, dude, you're a celebrity now. By
Nah,
now, you should be already a celebrity, dude.
nah.
Yeah. All right. I just gonna pretty much continue where we left off. Let me make sure I can hide unnecessary stuff and pretty much work on all that awesomeness that we did previously with the potato image that we have right here. Um, what do you think we should talk about as we're doing this?
What do I think we
Yeah.
should talk about?
Yeah, dude.
You want to know my opinion?
Of course.
Shit, man.
Of course, man. I want to know what you're feeling.
I want
where
to
you want
know
to
if
go
you
with
play
this.
any video games, Maciej. That's what I want to know.
If I play any video games, that's
Yeah, if you've
an
ever played any
interesting
games.
question.
Uh,
You know what? I shy away from a lot of video games. However, I've been, playing a little bit of here and there and, just having fun here and there sometimes.
tight.
So I just generally don't have enough time to really enjoy games.
Sure.
I wish I had, but to a degree, I I do enjoy playing games. Some of
All
them.
right.
I um I gave it a try with League of Legends because everyone is being crazy about it. I know everyone is crazy about um, Overwatch right now.
Yeah.
I might check it out, see what's up. The problem with those games is like they are very addictive,
Mhm.
And I don't know if I want to be a part of that. Uh, you
It's
know, with,
respectable.
yeah, it's just like if there's so much work that has to be done, I would rather not get caught up with too much video gamey stuff going on. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's just like there's no way there's no way I can control it after that. I
Mhm.
remember when I was starting in video games industry, I used to play quite a lot of Medal of Honor, the Allied Assault.
Nice.
You know the first Medal of Honor
Of
game,
course. Of course.
and we had those. It was a few friends that I knew from People Can Fly when I was working there, and we had like two or three favorite maps, and we would just go all night. Like we would stop working around say 9 in the evening, because like I would work really late,
Mm.
and those guys too, and we would just like literally the moment we stopped working, it's just like Medal of Honor, and we would go to like 3 4 a.m. like almost binging a session after session after session. It's just like
Yeah.
ah,
That's
but it
interesting.
was it was fun, It was a lot of fun playing with a crew. It was just like free for all, It
Mhm.
was like four of us, I believe. Most cases was three, sometimes four, and we would just like snipe each other, It
Mhm.
was a lot of fun, dude.
That's cool.
But it was taking away so much time. Holy
Of
fuck, dude.
course, of course.
Holy
But this is what you're working for, right? This
yeah.
is this is what you do is to entertain gamers, you know?
Yeah, so
And
in those cases it was fun. And then right after, you know, well, I mean not right after, but after a while, I've joined Crytek. I've been there for a couple of years.
sure.
And when Crytek was still in Coburg, it was like a small town in Bavaria before they moved to Frankfurt. they the main studio was pretty much in a house. Like it was I think it was like a townhouse or something, and like the studio itself was inside of it. You know, so that
Mm.
was kind of interesting because like rooms would be basically places where people would be sitting in a studio. There was some
Of course.
open spaces, but really small. Generally, I would say I don't know, like 50 people, maybe 40 people when I joined the company.
Wow.
And I remember sitting in the concept room with Jasper and Magnus, those two guys working there. And especially with Jasper, we would play Battlefield
Hmm.
2, you know.
Nice. Good choice.
What was that urban warfare map? Do you remember the name of it?
On
I
Battlefield
always,
2?
yeah, I keep forgetting.
Shit.
It was like sort of like it was the only map that had like streets and like buildings and shit like that. That's one of the only maps. Other maps were like very open. Yeah, we would play this one like crazy, dude. Crazy.
That's interesting, man. It's really cool.
Um, but then it's just like I decided actually, maybe a better idea is to actually paint a little bit, and
Sure.
learn something
Yeah.
instead of wasting time playing games,
That's cool, man. I mean, from my perspective, it's just like I've been playing games all my life, and that's where I'm at now, you know?
Yeah,
Uh, I'm just like friends through friends, and now all of a sudden I'm doing things with friends that are, badasses like you,
right.
making things.
I
But,
wouldn't call myself badass, but
but I mean,
I know what
yeah,
you mean.
you're fucking badass. But anyways, but
You're fucking badass.
in terms of like my perspective, it's just like I play video games, right? And I've always played video games, and I like have a certain respect to them. But like you're an artist, and you've shared enough of your thoughts and stuff to where I get to grow, right, as a gamer,
Right.
and I respect that. You know, that's dope. And right now
Cool, dude.
we're doing a thing about Uncharted, which is fucking amazing, right? It's
Yeah, Uncharted, dude. I wonder how many of you guys played Uncharted, because I didn't, but I know it's fucking awesome.
You didn't play Uncharted 4 at all?
No, not yet.
What about the other ones?
Well, so here's the thing. I played Uncharted 2
Hmm.
like a madman, because that was probably one of my favorite ones. I didn't play well, I did play Uncharted 3, but just briefly, not all of it. I didn't finish that game, to be honest. There was some really amazing set pieces though. Um, and I haven't played Uncharted 4. I know it's a beautiful game. I know it's gonna be freaking awesome because it was written and made
It's
by
amazing.
by the same guys who made
Hmm.
Uncharted 2 and The Last of Us. Bruce
Yeah.
Straley and Neil Druckmann. So, I mean, whenever you see a video game where there's Bruce Straley and Neil Druckmann, you know this is going to be one of the best fucking games ever made.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that duo can fuck up anything. They
Right.
would just whatever kind of subject matter you think would be bad for a video game, they will make it awesome. So, just saying. Um, and working with those guys. Oh, dude, I was really lucky when I joined Naughty Dog. Um, just just to watch how those two brains operate
Hmm.
and be part of the thinking process while creating assets for video game, dude. I I really don't know what to say,
Yeah.
because it's just like there are like art directors and creative directors and and writers and game directors that are good,
Sure.
and then there is Bruce Straley and Neil Druckmann. Like it's just like a jump from it's like a night and day. You know what I
So,
mean?
as a gamer myself, like playing Uncharted and The Last of Us, like their games are pretty much like story driven.
Yeah.
They are beautiful with their story, right? Like it captures like, oh my god, it's just like I'm so proud to be a gamer when experiencing a story, and like I actually teared up from both of those games, Uncharted and Last of Us.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my god, they captured it so well. But like when it comes to like environments and stuff, you guys play a part nonetheless in that story too.
Mm.
I mean, from my question, it's just like this is my own personal idea. It's just like what like I want to know about like how much do you know about the story before you create an environment? You know what I mean?
Right.
To
So it's an
contribute.
interesting one because when we were working, well, when you work in video games, the likelihood of you knowing everything about that game is
Hmm.
very high. Like in most cases, you're just gonna know what you're working on, obviously, right?
That's interesting.
Because like if you're supposed to design something meaningful, like you just have to know what you're doing. Like
Sure.
it just cannot be something random. Like it's never gonna work that way. So so from that perspective, you know what you're doing, right?
Hmm.
You know, okay, this specific map, this and this happens. This is the set pieces that's going to be in there, and this is what the character is gonna do, and whatnot. Like all that information, you already know. Like you know what's gonna happen. So here's the one thing that is kind of interesting when you work in games. Um, it's awesome to create games, but it's like really hard work, and it's also pretty sad because you're never gonna enjoy the game because you're never gonna be surprised by
Mm.
that game. Like you're already gonna know what exactly is happening. You know,
Wow.
like think about it. Um, when you when I was working on The Last of Us,
Yeah.
I knew 90% of the story. Like
Wow.
I knew what is going on there.
Hmm.
There was no like in many cases there was just no surprise for me. The only things I didn't know, or actually put it this way, I deliberately didn't care about story and other levels that I wasn't working on because I just didn't want to know. Like
Sure.
I wanted to play this game and find areas of it that are going to be interesting for me and so I can enjoy it as a player, you know, because
Yeah.
I've worked on it, I've created it, you know.
It's cool.
Um, and if I didn't have that opportunity to ignore, then it would fucking suck.
Of course.
Seriously, because like think about The Last of Us. It's one of the art, not even arguably, it's one of the best games ever made.
It is.
At least from the genre.
Yeah.
It reaped so many um, Game of the Year awards during the year it was released. It was basically breaking records. I don't. There's another game that came out
It's an
recently.
amazing game, and it had a great story to tell.
Yeah. So
So
I deliberately didn't care about anything that is going on in that game in areas that I didn't work on because I just didn't want to. Like I knew I want to enjoy it. I want to play it and enjoy it. And if I ever find myself knowing what's happening, I would just never be able to enjoy it at all.
hmm,
You know what I mean?
that's interesting, man. Like that explains a lot when it comes to just how the development process is. Like like these like Naughty Dog has their own company, and they're just like they're bringing on artists where I want to get what I can from you as an artist. I want you to make this happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I want to tell a story that we are set to make happen. But you're
So,
you're just a extra pawn on this story. You know what I mean?
right.
I mean
So
that's
in the case of The Last of Us,
Sure.
the beauty of working with, again, beauty of working with those guys was
Mm.
that, and especially with Naughty Dog, is that, you know, there is sort of like a semi structure to how a company is operating,
Sure.
but in most cases, everyone is on the same level of involvement, right? So if you have a good idea, you're gonna make it happen, right? And then if it's really good idea, people will like it, and it will end up being in the game, right?
Hmm.
So there's no just one body that is deciding this is what it is and shut the fuck up. Like that's not
Yeah.
how it works there. If you have brilliant ideas, people will follow them, and
Hmm.
you will make them happen. Um, and working with Bruce was like just seeing how Bruce and Neil's brain operate. You could kind of start picking up what they like and what the game itself is, and from there you might find something that would benefit the game as well. So you would come up with some visual ideas or suggest something that could happen
So cool.
in the specific areas. And if that idea was good, then it would be there, right?
Yeah.
And much like working with game designers, you would sit down, they would tell you, like, this is what we are trying to do with those story beats and story moments. And you would say, like, how about if we add this and that? And then this is, and you know, it supports the pacing and whatnot, but maybe has like a different angle to it. I remember when I joined Naughty Dog, and I met Shadi for the first time. For those who don't know, Shadi Safadi, he's a art director and uh, owner of One Pixel Brush. He used to work at Naughty Dog when I joined it. He was there for another 6 months, I believe, before he left. And he was talking and explaining to me how he worked with environment artists and game designers on Uncharted 2. And it was quite kind of interesting because they would create those. He would create those, you know, very detailed rendered paintings that would have so much visual information that would help and inspire designers to actually even change ideas of what this level could be about, you know, or like what exactly is going on there. Um, and you get that luxury if your visual language is strong enough, right?
Sure.
If you if you're just painting something and you don't really care how you're doing it and you're just doing it, just work. You know, if you have that attitude, there's the likelihood of you having any influence on what the game is going to be about is minimal, right? But if you really push for good ideas, if you really think about them and present them in a way that everyone will start to find like a valid reason to, you know, try it,
Sure.
then it's obviously gonna, you know, reap benefits. So
That's cool. So interesting, man. I mean, you're just like you're continuing this whole like what the hell, you know? Like, can you answer my questions? You know, when it comes to like gaming, like I think about like where we're at right now with Twitch streaming and stuff.
mm-hmm.
These are people that are just like joining us, and they're just like, I'm a gamer, but I want to know, you know, what is this creative thing, you know?
Mm.
And they're just like, all right, well, when it comes to this whole idea that we're streaming for education, um, you know, it's like we are a big part on education where it comes to like, you know, what you do is like you're creating a video game, you know, and like you haven't stopped at all. Like you're continuously uh, creating different IPs and stuff,
Right.
right? And you know, people are here to know about that. One question from
Yeah.
the chat.
Keep those questions coming.
Yeah, one of the questions says, should I concentrate on learning fundamentals by creating designs that are not that original? I inspired on another people concepts for creating original works. Concentrating on storytelling, I can design with 3D and overpaint, but the result is not that sexy.
And it won't be for longest time. The the I think I've mentioned this before, and that's going to be in a lot of cases. I think this is a question that's going to pop a lot, and we're gonna hear it time to time. And one thing that I know for sure is when you become an artist and you decide, okay, I am going to paint for a living. I'm going to create environment or characters, creatures, what have you, and I'll do it for cash money. Um, what's going to happen in most cases, unless you are lucky enough to find educational sources that will teach you how to design things, what are the design principles, and how to use them in the creation of, something more than just a painting, then you're lucky. That's a great thing. Like for instance, I didn't have that. I didn't have resources to learn design. I had to sort of like experiment and find it myself, right? So for longest time, I would not call myself a designer at all. I wouldn't even like. I wanted to call myself designer many times until I realized how much more there is to design itself, and how ignorant it is to call yourself a designer when really you don't know shit about design. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like you don't understand. Like I didn't understand principles behind the design. Like I didn't know what shapes are working together well or not. What colors should be combined together in order to express emotions or shapes or lines. Um, how balance of shape works, how balance of scale works, all those things, right? I just didn't know. Like I was just doing it by intuition and by observation. And in most cases, what I've learned over time is intuition and observation. Just really that, nothing else. Um, until I, finally, like later in my career, started to notice, okay, there's something more to how things are put together, right? There's a reason when you look at an armor design or a vehicle or weapon, right? There's a reason why it looks good or not. There's a reason why some designs that you see or some paintings that you see, even though they are rendered nicely, are boring. Like you just don't like, whatever, right?
Sure.
Even though they look photoreal, amazingly painted, they could be painted without texture, with the in Photoshop with pencil brush, but just pixel fucking every single corner, and it's still not going to be impressive at all because it's just like something's not right. And then you're gonna see sketches that are very loose, not necessarily rendered. Maybe colors are off. Maybe something's wrong with the rendering, but the design is so beautiful. Like you want to look at it, right? And and it was not until I started to investigate why it is that way, and learning that that's the shapes, that's the forms, the balances, and tangents, and all those things that combine together create a sense of design, and not only sense of design of functionality, which you would use in industrial design, where you understand the function of things and you apply that function to your painting, but also like the design of shapes, the way you use forms, the way you use scale in between. Like, let's say you design some kind of armor piece or some kind of vehicle, right? The way you place details, the spacing between those details, right? The spacing between forms, the angle between, like, the different angles that you're using and how consistently you're using them.
Mm.
Like all those things, once you start to observe and understand and read about like why they are working that way, you then you start to understand what design really is. And it's funny because it's really hard to find good design books, right?
Of course.
Because it's such a broad subject that pretty much applies to every single portion of your of life. Not only just not only just painting or environments or entertainment design in general, but also everything else, right?
Yeah.
When you grab a doorknob or sit on a chair, the design is there. Like this is what the design is about as well. So but going back to the question, like I would say if you paint something and observe and fail, that's one way of doing it, which will help you to start to understand by making mistakes, right? You have to make mistakes. Even though you might be the best educated person, you still will make mistakes. Even though you understand how design principles work, you're not going to be the best designer just by understanding it. You need to practice. You need to make effort, make mistakes, do drawings that look like shit, and then do them again and again and again until you get it.
Sure.
And then also educate yourself. I know it sounds cheesy. Educate yourself. I started with Bruce Block, Visual Story. Like that was one of the books that was recommended to me, and I started reading it. And what this book allowed me to do is I started to understand a little better how film cinematography works, and how composition works,
Mm.
and why and how lines and shapes work in film, right? Specifically in film. And because I've been doing keyframe paintings for the longest time, that was a knowledge that I could apply right away to whatever I'm doing. And I found it to be really helpful to have that knowledge. Um, Now there's obviously more books out there. One of one of the books I started reading. Let me see what the name of it is. Just grabbing it from the shelf. It's called Symbol: The Reference Guide to Abstract and Figurative Trademarks. And this one is interesting because it basically has like symbols and logos and weird shapes and shit. And there is like it's just a drawing in most cases, and then annotation with explanation. What is this symbol or shape supposed to mean?
Yeah.
Right. So by just looking at few pages, you're gonna be fucking confused because like I don't get why four squares are supposed to be, I don't know, whatever, like supposed to mean one thing or another.
Mm-hmm.
But as you go through this book and you look through those symbols and you examine how the lines are used and what shapes are represented there, and you read the intention that is behind it, you start to see patterns, and you start to see, okay, there's something behind that specific shape that is used for, in most cases, for very specific things, right? To represent specific companies or things like that. And you get to understand, okay, now if a lot of companies are using square for meaning A and using circle for meaning B, that means there's something to it, right?
Hmm.
There is some kind of emotion that this specific shape is creating that basically applies to what the reader is gonna be looking at, like how you read the logo and what it means to you. So it's like correlating meaning with a shape almost with
Can
that
you
book.
can you repeat the book?
Yeah, it's called Symbol: The Reference Guide to Abstract and Figurative Trademarks. It's by Angus Highland and Stephen Bateman.
Sweet, thanks, man.
And it's $25.
$25.
Yeah,
Next question.
$25.
Moving forward to the next question. It says, for concept artist jobs, what are the difference between games, animation, and film? For a concept artist, like if they're if they're like working towards those different brands, like,
So
what is the difference there?
So concept artist. So there's few differences, but in most cases they're not so significant. I would say. One, I think the biggest difference between games and film is how intricate or how detailed work for video games can be compared to film. There's one thing you need to remember just by looking at film or games is in film, budgets are different, expectations are different, and timelines are different, right? So if a game development typically takes anywhere between 1.5 or like 1.5 years to up to 10 years in some cases, when you know especially when designers or the whoever is driving the production of the game is an idiot, then usually it will take longer because he cannot make proper decisions unless the game is so freaking huge that it just requires so much time to be made. But typically it takes between a year and a half to maybe 4 years tops, right? On average, like really good games are in between that time frame. If it's taking longer, then there's obviously something wrong with the production cycle, because games should not take that long. In film, it's different. Film's production alone might be up to a year at most, and then you go into post-production, which is like totally different field. You're gonna have different kind of concept work done there, and depending on how heavy visual effects the film's gonna have, depending on that, it's just like it can be a couple of months, it can be a year, So the amount of time that the video game will have, production time, is way different than the amount of time studio would spend on making a film. And this is very important information to know, because it affects the budgets, and it affects the how many things you can do during that time frame, and how important it is to nail down specific things before moving forward, right? And in film, from my experience in film, if you're working in film, in most cases, being in art department, it means that you're designing environments, keyframes, shit like that, right? If you're in viz dev, you might be doing visual development, especially in films like Marvel films, right? They have their own visual development team, amazing artists that are basically designing everything from creatures, weapons, all the characters, all that stuff, keyframes. They are designing that. Art department usually designs what has to be built on set. Like that's the idea behind art department, building sets, right? So your work as a concept artist for film, in many cases, would mean that you're designing things that have to be built later on, right? Now, difference between building in video games and building for film is very significant, because in video games, the way you design objects and things, they just have to work from every single angle. Like you just have to make it look and work from every angle, because you as a game character, you're going to move around the building and you're going to see it from all places. You're going to see it from the close up, you're going to see it from far away, you're going to see it from different angles. So you have to design it in a way that it looks good in general, right? In film, you're only going to see it from one angle, from one specific frame, and it's not necessarily going to be a frame that, exposes very specific details or not. So when you're designing for film, you're more concerned about making sure that it's going to look good in a frame rather than good everywhere, right? Second thing is, I've noticed, like, biggest difference is I've almost never had anyone coming over and telling me that I have to build, like, if I use 3D in video games, I would almost never had anyone telling me, like, oh, it has to be in scale. Or if I would design vehicles, like, it has to be in the proper scale. So when you have a 3D model, like, the scale is going to be important, right? Or that the proportions of a vehicle have to be really measured to what the base of the vehicle would be like.
Mm.
Nobody cares, because you can pretty much build it in 3D and it's going to be all in 3D. It's going to be all in video game. It's going to be all fake, if you will. In film, however, when you're building vehicles, most likely it will be based on a vehicle that already exists. So they will pick some kind of car, Jeep or van or whatever the fuck that's going to be, and you need to change it you need to change it to make it look like whether it's a futuristic or retro or steampunk, whatever that would be. Well, you need to change it, but still keep it within boundaries so they can use that vehicle that they've purchased that actually functions, so they can put an actor on it and the actor can drive, right? So whenever you add, like, some kind of attachments or change the coiling or change the structure or shell or add things, you need to take into consideration that the person has to get into that vehicle and has to be able to drive it, right? So that's really important thing to know, because it affects your flexibility and also your workflows, right? And you have to work in scale. When you're designing sets, it's imperative you're working in scale, because the sets have to be built on a stage. So the stage is basically this huge building, the hangar, right? Which studios have, whether it's in studio or they hire, like if they're shooting in Vancouver or whatever, they have stages there. Those places have specific size and scale. And now in that specific size and scale, you need to create sets. So you're gonna have a limited amount of space, and you're gonna have to design everything in that limited amount of space. So let's say if in one stage, a film is gonna build, like, say, 3 sets. Those 3 sets are gonna have specific measurements that you cannot go beyond. So anything that goes beyond usually is going to be a visual effects, right? But anything within the boundaries, anything that is within the boundaries of what the stage or what the set is going to be like, has to be well measured. And you have to be, adamant about whatever details you're adding or changing. They have to match the scale of what you're doing. Because if they are not, it's going to be confusing for set designers who actually have to design it so that then it can be built. And if it's confusing for them, then it's a waste of time, because then whatever you painted has to now all of a sudden be figured out, And your job is not to make people confused. Your job is to answer questions on pictures,
Make
you
it
know. So
happen. Yeah.
yeah, so those are major differences, I would say. Animation, I don't have enough experience to talk about animation. I believe it's very similar to what the video games are. It's more story driven, you know. So
Mm. Next question for you. It says, do you know who Alex Oliver is?
Alex who?
Alex Oliver?
Uh, rings the bell. I don't know. I'm gonna Google him.
It's all right. Next question for you. It says, working in a studio, you can learn with your colleagues, but be a freelancer, maybe you can't learn so much as you are with being in a studio. Do you feel it's rigged?
Wait, hold on. I got
It's a complicated
I
question.
got distracted by Alex Oliver's freaking amazing sculptures. Holy shit. Holy fuck. I knew it would ring the bell, but
Yeah, let's take a second to
woo!
readjust that.
Processing it.
I'm sure you know who he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that work before, but I've never been able to attach name. I guess I haven't paid enough attention. Dude, it's fucking awesome. Wow. I love it. I love it. No, seriously, sick stuff. All right, what was the question?
Last question said, working in a studio, you can learn with your colleagues, but a freelancer, maybe you can't learn so much as you can being in a studio. Do you feel like it's rigged?
Um, well, let's put it this way. I think that well, obviously, or let's put it this way: if you're in a studio, if you've never been in a studio, if you've never worked in a studio, and it's like your first time working for a studio on site, you're gonna learn a lot just being there, right? But the most things you're gonna learn as a concept artist is how the studio pipelines operate and how video games are made and what makes video games good and bad, right? What kind of dynamics are in between artists and designers? Like those are the things you're gonna learn in a studio. And also, being in the studio applies to how you learn from others as well. And it all depends on you, really. Because there are people that learn really well by working with others, and there are people that just hate being with others, right? It just depends on what kind of personality you have. There are people that like to chat and socialize and be there and ask questions and find answers and stuff like that. And there are people that would just hide in their corner and like just fucking go away because I'm focused on work, right? If you're a kind of person that just hate people, which is funny because Shaddy always telling me I hate people, which might be true. Um, then being in a studio environment is not necessarily going to be that beneficial compared to how much more work you can do if you're in your own home and you're really focused on what you're doing. Now here's a caveat: you have to be really fucking focused on what you're doing because if you work from home, if you're freelance, you have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have video games, TV, like everything is a distraction. And it's really easy to fall into it, like because nobody's watching but yourself, and you're really watching your own time. And it's really easy to go down that rabbit hole. It's like, oh, I gotta watch one more video, or I'm gonna check news feed and see what's going on,
So true.
and then 3 hours later, it's like, what?
Yep.
Huh? Where am I? So it's it applies to every person I know. Like every single, I don't think I know any freelancer that haven't done it at least once. Like just fucked themselves over with not paying attention to time. You know.
It's so interesting, man. Like, it's true. Like, we screw ourselves thinking we know what's going on, but we're just like, we don't know.
Yep. We just don't know.
Another question is, can you recommend any good design books?
Well, mention two, right? And then um, I don't know. I would have to look up some. There's another one that I picked up, but I haven't had time to look at. Oh, you know what? There's this awesome book. It's really simple. It almost looked like it's made for children, and it's called Picture This.
That's good.
And it's basically hold on, let me pick it up from my shelf. Hold on. It's a book made by Molly Bang, and that's the book that uh, Ash recommended to me. It's one of the most simple design books I've ever seen. It looks like made for children, and it's like you're gonna read it in an hour and you're gonna be done.
Hmm.
And it's really interesting, and it's cheap as fuck. So pick it up if you can.
It's cool. Maciej, are you still training jujitsu at all?
Uh, I haven't trained for a couple of months now, and I can only blame myself for this. So I'm working too hard, working too much,
It's alright, man.
way too much.
Another question says, working in a studio, you can learn with your colleagues, but uh, be a freelancer, maybe you can't learn so much as you being a studio. Is it right? It's hard to read. Sorry.
Wait, can you repeat it? I
It was kind of
didn't
broken. It
didn't
says
quite didn't quite catch it.
it's hard to read. All right, skipping to the next question. It says, will there be a point where a crew of artists can make a film without Hollywood money? So more deserving IPs get seen, e.g., Showtime/projects, instead of rubbish that we've seen recently, type stuff.
Um, I'll tell you what is the problem with current state of what the films are. It used to be that executives of the studio would come from film. Like they would be filmmakers before or be attached to film in most cases, right? Now, these days, in most cases, executive of studios are people after business schools, Harvard or whatever. They they operate with numbers rather than love for film. And I'm not saying all of them, and I'm not saying which of them because I don't fucking know. But that's what I hear when I'm talking to people that work in the film industry. Like it shifted from people that work in films and are studio executive to people that have nothing to do with films, but they only see like risks or benefits of creating films. You have to ask yourself, what is the logic of not making or almost not making Deadpool, the film? You know how it happened, right?
Hmm.
Deadpool was supposed to be not made at all. That's at least what I'm hearing. And again, by the way, allegedly, because I don't fucking know. I was not there in those meeting rooms. But from what I heard and from what everyone is saying at this point is that Ryan Reynolds basically allegedly leaked the trailer, right? The test that Blur did with Tim Miller. And because the studio just didn't want to make a movie. Like we're not gonna make it. Like it's too. It's like it's not PG-13, so it's not gonna sell. And the footage leaked. People it blew up. People were fucking going crazy, and then the studio saw it like, okay, well, I guess when people like it, now we can actually make the movie, you know.
It's
And the movie
interesting.
was made, and by the way, it's the best selling
It's
superhero
fucking
movie
amazing.
fucking ever,
Yeah,
right?
it's good.
So all the assumption of this is not gonna sell are garbage. It's the same story with Guardians of the Galaxy, which by the way, it's true because the director of the film even said it. This film was not supposed to be made. Like nobody believed that Guardians of the Galaxy can become a successful IP. Like that was a film that was not supposed to be made either, and yet it was one of the fucking best superhero movies ever made
Yeah,
too. So
so
um,
exciting.
so there's lists of assumptions of what people like and what people don't like, and it's just like a roll of a dice. Really, you never know. You never know what people like or what they don't like. You know, there's obviously some areas and some things that sell better than others. That's undeniable. But like assuming something's not gonna work because it's not PG-13, that's like a false assumption, right?
So cool.
Now going back to the question, like if there's ever going to be time when people can make movies, people already make movies. Artists already make movies. Look at Andre Wallen. He created his own short film, and he directed it. He's a concept artist, and he directed his own short film. Now making blockbuster 300 million movies with fucking amazing VFX. I don't think that's ever gonna happen or anytime soon, unless we're gonna get software that basically creates everything as you're thinking of it. And having an experience working in films and seeing how films are made on set and how much fucking work it is to be a director,
Hmm.
like knowing how hard it is to be a director and direct a movie and operate everything and make sure there's no fuck ups
Sure.
when money is basically just being thrown into trash every fucking minute, and seeing the whole experience makes you um, makes you appreciate films in general, regardless if they are shitty or not. Just because they are made, just because there was a collective effort of hundreds of people that were coordinated in a way that the movie could happen, right? Now we could discuss whether the story was good or not, whether the writers did a good job, or whether the vision from the director was good or not. That's separate topics, right? But just seeing the act of filmmaking on the highest level, unless you have seen it, you're never gonna understand how much work it is,
Yeah.
right? You're just never gonna understand. It's so overwhelming for an average person. It's just like if you take a camera, like let's put it this way. I did my apprentice with Jingna for the artistic
Hmm.
photography class, right? I learned Squared. And organizing a photo shoot, simple photo shoot with friends, not even hiring people. I only hired one person that I paid. Everyone else was my friend that I asked for favor. Just organizing that and seeing how many things could have collapsed and make the whole experience not happening at all was mind blowing,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And that's just 4 people and one photo shoot. Now imagine dealing with 600 people
Hmm.
and 6, 8, 20 weeks of shooting, where you work from morning till morning every fucking day, including weekends,
I mean, that's
and do
that's
reshoots. It's
that's
just
a
insane. It's an insane experience. And after seeing this, I've said to myself, I never want to be director, no matter how much money you can make. I would never want to be director because I'm not made for it. You know?
You're making
It's
a
just
lot
so
of sense, man.
it's such a hard job to do. So
Sure.
again, I'm elaborating a lot on the question of if it's possible. It is possible. People make movies on iPhones,
Hmm.
and this it all depends on what the story is, right? You can make a compelling story. It doesn't have to be full feature, and you can make it alone. You can make it alone. Like you don't even need anyone to make it happen. But it's not gonna be Avatar or
Right.
whatever, right? It's not gonna be one of those blockbuster films. That's not gonna happen. Not without studio or at least some kind of funding where you're gonna have millions of dollars to pay for everything. Just the amount of gear that you need to have in order to shoot practical, and like just even to have green screens to begin with,
Mm.
and have proper cameras, and have hot lights, and have cables and wirings and stages to build it, and people to build those things, carpenters, riggers. Like there's so much shit, and it costs so much money. I don't, you can make it in computer CGI, but you know, in most cases, it's very difficult. If you want to have like a full feature experience, that's a whole different beast. So
It's true, man. There's so much. I mean, you're speaking so right. It's like with everything. It's like, I mean, we're just trying to make a. We're artists. Like we all are artists. Like we're listening to somebody who we respect so much.
I'm an artist too,
Right.
and the only difference between me
Mm.
and let's say you or anyone else is just I was lucky to have experience to see it myself
Mm.
and see everything done in front of me or have those experiences.
Yeah.
If you would be lucky to have those experiences, you would pretty much preach as well.
Yeah, man. I believe in
Preach,
that.
man,
I believe
preach.
in what you're saying, man. It doesn't, it's like
Um,
no argument at all.
it's
But
just everyone can have those experiences,
yeah,
or it's a longer debate, and I was talking about it before, like almost everyone, depending on how much effort you're gonna put into, and assuming you got born in the right
sure.
circumstances. So
Yeah, man. I mean, we're just trying to develop ourselves every day,
no,
And you're kicking ass nonetheless with everything that you do. And everybody is just trying to branch off of, what you're trying to share to everybody, like make it a thing for their lives. So
yeah, I'm
that's
just
cool.
I'm just trying to be helpful. That's it.
For sure. I mean, let's go into questions again. Sorry. It's like,
Yeah,
whoa,
man.
you're right. But yeah. Another question says, do you think learning 3D tools or mathematics so be good? Is it good if your mathematics, which are good, will it more helpful? It's such a broken up question, but
Oh yeah, I can see it. Do you
it
think
says
learning 3D tools, mathematics, so be good?
will it more helpful
Mathematics.
yourself to learn 3D software? 3D software is the primary thing.
Yeah, so well, obviously, so let's put it this way: 3D software is just software. It's just
Mm,
tool, right? Every
right.
tool is different. I'm using Max. I can use Maya. I can use Modo. I can use whatever. It's going to just be a tool. There is obviously specific workflows that work across all the tools. So poly modeling, for instance, is pretty much the same thing everywhere. If you know how to poly model in Max, you're gonna know how to poly model in Cinema 4D. You're gonna know how to poly model in pretty much any software. It's just gonna be different menus, different icons, and different keystrokes that you're gonna have to push in order to make it happen. And some tools are gonna be different, right? One software is gonna have better poly editing or poly modeling tools. The other one gonna have better animation tools and whatnot. But in general, once you understand the workflow, you can apply it everywhere. Like there's no reason why you wouldn't. So learning how 3D software works and how to create stuff in 3D, I would say it's not a hard thing to do. It takes time to start to process things in 3D rather than in 2D. And I would argue it's probably one of the most important things that you can start learning as of right now, because it will, and it is, quickly becoming a industry standard. So if you're debating whether you should learn 3D or not, I would say fucking yeah, you should. Definitely should.
It's cool. All right, so this one goes deep, man. Uh, it says, will there be a point where a crew of artists can make a film without Hollywood's money?
You already asked me that question.
I did.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that again. So deep. But anyways, all right. Next
Dude,
question.
you sound tired as fuck.
I'm ready to sleep. Tired. I'm sorry. Did I read that question?
Yeah, dude, you did.
All right. Can you recommend any good design books? Did I read that one?
Yeah. We've went through some of those already. I think you have to scroll
Right.
down your chat,
Scrolling
brother.
down deep. It says, do you think learning 3D tools, mathematics,
Yeah,
so...
we read that too.
All right.
Dude, wake up. Wake up, John.
I'm failing so bad. These are all such good questions though. I'm just like, ah.
All right, I'll read the question. While you were in the process of learning and practicing art, what sort of thought process helped you stay on the path and not give up? I'll tell you what. I was a janitor, and I had an option: be a janitor or make money making art. And I think making money making art is way better than cleaning up toilets and poops and shit. So that was my motivation. It all depends on where you're at with your life, dude. Um, if you know, if you have options to do something that you love, and you can see that you can make it happen to a point where, all right, I can totally make money, then you should do it. You know, and that's as simple as that. Like, don't give up because it's hard, right? Like, you don't want to give up because it's hard. If you're giving up just because it's hard, then it's not for you. Then you're not wanting it enough, right? But also be realistic how much you can achieve, and sometimes being unrealistic helps too.
Mhm.
And again, it's like a longer discussion. I've been mentioning this on my previous streams, and it's funny, as I'm talking, I'm not painting or doing anything, so apologies for that. But I think it's an important thing to know and understand. For me, pushing myself above and beyond the limits, it was one of the things that made me or got me to a point where I'm right now. But not everyone is made from the same bones. Not everyone will have the same opportunities to go after. Like, if you get born in a shitty fucking patch of dirt somewhere where there's war, or no access to proper education whatsoever, then might not be so lucky to just say, I want to be an artist and create awesome pictures and learn how to do it, because you just might not have those opportunities in front of you, and maybe you're not going to have people that will help you to find those opportunities, or help you to go in the right direction, and help you make wise choices instead of failing and making stupid mistakes to a point in which you're like just so bad and like not knowing where to go that you're willing to give up. And I know some of my friends that have been through like some of the art schools, and doing seminars there, or workshops, or just even like people that I knew, that I worked with, saying that I thought I was the shit in high school until I saw what students from art center are doing, and then I realize how shitty I am, you know. And some people just are not exposed to any of that. They just don't see it. And when you don't see it, the likelihood of you making grave mistakes that will basically prohibit you from working, or not prohibit, or greatly put you in a greater disadvantage of finding work or becoming good enough to actually be considered in video games or film or whatever that is, right? Are becoming higher and higher. So you have to have people around you, or your brain has to be. You have to grow up through your environment, your parents or people you're hanging out with, areas you're in, everything that is basically molding your infant brain into your adult brain, that will give you a hint that you're supposed to do one thing and not the other. Or we'll have people that will tell you, dude, you have to really pay attention to this because it's important. If you're not doing that, if you don't have people that will tell you that, or if your brain is not functioning in a way that it's actually giving you those hints, it might be impossible for you to find the right path, right? So that's how I used to view it a way like, yeah, man, just pull yourself by the bootstraps and just fucking work 10,000 hours and you're gonna be the shit. That's not how it works. I wish it was that way. Like, I really wish it was just the amount of hours you're gonna put in something. It just doesn't work that way. The more I understand, I've been obsessed about brain development and, how childhood experiences, because I have a kid myself. And, it's just like a different experience to see how children grow and how many fucking things they have to learn in the first place. Like, it's just mind-boggling how many thousands and thousands and thousands, I'm not even exaggerating, thousands of skills they have to obtain in order to be functional, just functional human beings. I'm not even talking about being savant about something and being an amazing artist or musician or whatever. Just to function, talk, and understand that if they want to take a shit, they can do it, right? Like, all those small things develop in our brains, and they develop depending on what environment you're in, what kind of people are surrounding, what kind of parents you have, how they take care of you, right? And then from there, like, what kind of children you're hanging out with, like what kind of environment you're in. If you're in a bad neighborhood where all you see is hatred and people just fighting one another, and there's everyone's poor, and like it's always a struggle, like the simplest things are the struggle, the last thing you're gonna think about is becoming an artist.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fucking, like, even if you have a drive because you like art, you're not gonna see the path. You first have to fucking deal with hundreds of different problems in order to even have the luxury to pick up a pencil and draw, or have money to buy a tablet. Because, like, what are you gonna buy a tablet if you have no food in your fridge? Like, that's not gonna happen, right? So, but I'm assuming that if you're listening to the stream, the likelihood of you not being in such dire conditions that you just cannot do anything about it, it's probably unlikely if you're ending up and listening to this stream, because otherwise, how would you find it? Is you have to want to make it real bad. Like, you have to be really obsessed about being an artist, because there are professions out there that are way easier. You're not gonna make a lot of money. You might not, And by the way, art, it's not a lot of money, unless you're really out there. Unless you're in the top few percent of experienced, great, fucking talented people. You're not gonna make a lot of money. You're gonna make average money. You're probably gonna make better money working for bank than being an artist. Now, some people will like working in bank because they just want to, you know, do their job, go home, and then have fun, right? I mean, there's some people that like to make art and they don't care. Like, I might be better off with being a banker, but I would hate doing that. I'd rather do art and make less, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to really love it because it might be that just it's just gonna be just enough for you to make a living and that's it, you know. And can you live with that? Can you live with that truth that you might never make it to a point where you're gonna like break through and just like, oh yes, now I can afford like a better car, or now I can afford to have a house or something, you know. That's something you have to face as an artist, and you have to really want it real bad. So whenever you're getting stuck with something and you're like, oh, I fucking don't want to learn that 3ds Max piece of shit, you know, like fuck that program or whatever. If you ever get stuck into it, like just ask yourself, like, it it if I just give up, what else I'm going to do, right? If just ask yourself that, like, I can give up and just not do it, or I can push myself through all the obstacles and make it easier for myself.
So
And
true.
the more you push, the better you become. The better you become, the more you stand out. The more you stand out, the easier for you to get a job. It's like a domino effect, right? It's a causality of actions where the more effort you put towards, and you don't have to, again, you don't have to be the most impressive artist on earth. But if you're consistent with your work, and you're pushing forward constantly and constantly and constantly, eventually you're going to get to a skill level where you're going to have offers coming to you and not the other way around where you have to look for offers. And once you have offers coming your way, you know, first of all, you don't have to worry about job anymore. And later, if you just keep pushing, you're going to have enough offers that you can start choosing projects that you like. And later down the road, you might choose projects that you like and ask for more money because you have so many offers. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's a long road to get there. It's definitely possible to get there. There's a lot of things that are attached to that possibility, you know, circumstances in life, and also how much you're willing to do it. I would say it's 50-50. Like 50% is you really pushing through and making connections with people and listening to the right advice, and 50% of just being lucky because you can get hit by a car and then your dream is over, you know. So
Damn.
Daniel.
God damn.
Damn, Daniel. But I mean, look at like, if you look at the artists like Danny Lovisi, for instance, and there's a few more, but Danny is like prime example. That guy was shut on by his teachers, and nobody really believed in what he's doing. And look where he is right now.
He's a good guy.
But he had to fucking work hard.
Mhm.
He
Every
put
day,
everything, yeah, he put everything on the line his whole life. I liked reading Elon Musk biography because apart from Elon Musk being a protege in what he does, right? He's just so fucking good, right? His brain, the way his brain worked, when he was young, he was making video games. When he was like 12, he was making video games, programming them. Plus, how much effort and commitment he put into everything. He was pretty much a psychopath in terms of how much effort he was basically putting towards what he was doing.
Sure.
But is there any other person on earth that you can tell is changing, completely flipping upside down 3 major industries? I would dare you to find one apart from him.
You're talking about Dan Levisi, right?
No, I'm talking about Elon Musk.
Elon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, he changes
fucking
a lot of shit, man.
rocket science,
Yeah.
you know, space generally, cars, and electricity. or energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's changing 3 building blocks of Earth's economy
Yeah,
single-handedly.
that's how life is
But
changing.
how many people would do this where he had billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars of wealth, and he got to a point where he was almost a bankrupt because he believed in what he's doing
Right.
and was willing to give it all up, or give up all the wealth he accumulated, everything, put his whole family, himself, his well-being, his life, everything on the line, because he knew and trusted SpaceX and Tesla.
It's truth,
There's
man.
not many people that would do that. Like if you have $400 million in your bank account, it's like, oh fuck that, I'm going to Hawaii or Bahamas and enjoy the rest of my life without working ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he has a different drive. Like he is he just fucking, there is one Elon Musk and there is no other.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, not everyone is wired that way, dude. Not everyone would do that. I can tell you there's no, that's why there's only one Elon Musk, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, man. I mean, I'm just staying quiet as a civilian, and I can only expose my
Civilian.
own words. Yeah, it sucks. It's like I'm just a civilian. Blah blah blah.
No, dude. Just
But
keep on
yeah,
keeping on.
working with you and everybody, just like so cool. You guys are awesome.
All
But
right, let's get through one more question and start wrapping it up. By the way, this is going so fucking slow, and I'm really apologizing for that. But again, it's just we're gonna do it forever, and we're gonna do like plenty of more episodes and Twitches where we're just gonna paint this, or well, eventually I'm gonna stop building this and put it in Photoshop and start painting. But it's just like you can watch me doing most every step by step here. So next time I plan to do a little more next time. Maybe I should get like a guest. Like they'll be talking more than I do, so I can focus on the work a little more. But yeah, let's get one more question and wrap it up, and then the next one we'll have next week on Friday, same time. By the way, like if you guys don't see a banner, it's gonna be exactly same time next week. So
one of the last questions from Twitch says, "Do you think knowing about proper noun is important? Proper nouns is important, or just know how to do it, but you do know how to explain it? How do you do is fine." Such a broken up question. It's very
hold on, do
hard
you
to
think
ask.
no?
Can you answer that question?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
You reading it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming whoever's writing these questions is not,
It was a little bit too in depth.
yeah, is maybe not an English speaking person
Yeah, it's
primarily. So it's, trying to decipher.
Do you think?
Yeah, I don't think I quite understand this question, to be honest,
It's alright.
because noun, I guess, like expressing myself in terms of explaining what I do. I really don't know.
It's a hard
If that's
question.
yeah, lean poaching. Don't worry, dude. It's just I get it. I when I was learning English myself, I was not that well versed. I remember my so here's a funny anecdote. I used to when I joined Crytek. You know how stereotypical you can say stereotypical um, Russian sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like stereotypical Russian talking English.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was that person. I knew maybe a few words and I would be just talking like an asshole, And the first my boss, my supervisor was a guy from Scotland. And those who know Scottish people, they have this accent that unless you're really good in English, you're never gonna fucking understand, dude. And the second guy I was working with was American, but he was the fastest speaking American that I've ever met up till now. And it
It's
was horrible
I think
experience.
we're fucking living in such a amazing time, you know, when it comes to like translation, you know. Um we have so many different like tools to
Right.
make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, right now,
Right.
typing in Google Translate, like even just Skype has that
Yeah,
feature, right? Where you
exactly.
talk and it just translate
Yeah,
your
man.
transcript in different language. So
They're gonna release something fucking huge, which is gonna change
yeah,
the world in the future. But right now, we get to understand different languages because we get to even if we will spend that or send that extra time to make it like you want to hear the translation and then share it, right?
yeah,
But like to a certain extent, you know, this guy is just like, yeah, I want to know about art. I want to know what is going on. He's here. He wants to know,
yeah.
right? But I mean, he actually spoke up. He was just like, "How about this question? When you want to highlight a character, object, or something, what would you do?" That's what he's trying to mean. He's trying to speak out.
Um, all right. So I'll just answer to what I think I understand from it and what I think the intent is, and if it's a wrong intent, then I
Sure.
apologize. So from what I understand is how I guess how to make a character compelling and standing out and not just be a thing, whether it's a character, object, or something that is just there and it's kind of blah. I guess that's the
Hmm.
question. So you just have to understand exactly what you want to achieve with that specific thing you're doing. So if it's just a character that is supposed to be like a background character or whatever, then obviously you don't care that much. But if it's a hero object in the scene, like one of the most important elements or building in the specific scene that is basically a highlight, there's certain things that you need to understand in terms of what draws attention. And there's two ways. So one thing is drawing attention through composition and lighting, and then drawing attention through design. So drawing attention through composition and lighting would mean that you light a scene in a very specific way that the most contrast will come in around the area you're supposed to look at, right? So if you have like an interior of the building and you want to highlight something specific, you will highlight it by the lighting. So for instance, in this render that I'm doing here, the bounce light is basically highlighting this booth, and then there's another light that is in the background, in which I'm assuming I could add like an element sticking in here that
Hmm.
would basically be lit by this ceiling light, and that would be two things that would tell me about this environment. So one, I'm supposed to look at this booth, and two, I'm supposed to look at that thing back there. And maybe that's my intention. Maybe you're supposed to first explore the booth and then go straight there. Now, if I would add light, strong light right here, where this opening is, where I want to add escalator, that would mean there's another option. You can go downstairs and check what's there. So you're leading an eye in different directions, um, and you're leading the eye towards specific goals. Now, drawing attention through design is meaning you're creating something that is fresh and original, and is basically that, right? So it's not just something you've seen many times before. You're trying to be original, and you're creating something really cool. So whether you're using specific materials for it or shapes and forms and or be really creative in how you do it. So yeah, that's I hope that was the intent of the question, and that's the answer. All right, let's wrap it up. We spent about an hour and a half here, so it's time to get it done. I gotta get back to work.
Sure.
And thanks for everyone who showed up and have been online and was asking questions and tuned in to listen to this. Again, this is obviously gonna end up being on YouTube, and we're gonna keep doing those. I'm pretty sure Ash is coming back next week, right, with his stream,
Yeah.
if I remembered correctly. So I
Mm.
believe that's Thursday, and obviously continuation of what we've been doing here, Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, we'll keep
I'll
these things
see you
going
guys then.
for sure. Thanks,
Fuck
guys.
yeah! All right, cheers. Have a good weekend, people.
See you next time.
Bye bye.